slide here in these seats towards the center so people can come in and sit up here and don't feel like they have to crawl over you. Just slide together a little bit so people can come in. Whoever can yell. And all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. There are seats up here if you don't want to climb all the way in the back, and then I don't have to yell. I just moved everybody together to open up seats. So I love being a Jewish kid who gets to, let me finish that, who gets to listen to church bells while bowing to the Buddha. To me, I think that sums up Buddhism in the Western culture, and a beautiful application of Buddhist teachings. Often I do this thing where I say, if there's 80 people here and I ask you to raise your hand and I say how many Buddhists are here, I tell people you usually see less than a handful of hands. But this time as I was bowing, I guess I started on time today. I actually heard the church bells and that's what went through my head. It was kind of neat. So if you are brand new to Buddhism or meditation, welcome. We have, believe it or not, 40 college kids here right now, silently, for 4 hours on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m. from San Diego State. That's a miracle in its own right that they're here. But so they have a day of silence retreat that we do every month, first Saturday of every month. And so we put the college kids through retreats also. So during the cleaning period, one kid was outside. His task was to sweep. And so he was on the sidewalk, and all he was doing was sweeping the dirt onto the grass. And I'm sure nobody here would do that, but I'm just using this as an example. And I said, "What are you doing?" It's a silent retreat, but I chose to speak to him. It would have been a tough conversation if it was silent. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm cleaning the sidewalk." And I said, "But you're also making the grass dirty." And he kind of looked at me and, still trying to figure out what he's doing here on a Saturday morning. But so you're making the grass dirty. And you could see his brain kind of like frazzle a little bit. And I said, often that's what we do. We want to clean something, but we just kind of sweep it to where nobody can see it. And when we sweep the dirt onto the grass, it's still dirt. And everything from within Buddhist practice, cleaning, sweeping, eating, walking, talking, relationships, everything we have is a reflection of our own mind. Everything we do is a reflection of our own mind. And what I shared with him, and this whole dialogue probably took place in less amount of time than I'm taking to explain it. And I said, something to the effect of, if you spend your life sweeping dirt onto the grass, you're never going to clear the mind. And to me, it's a reflection of our minds that we're often trying to hide things to where nobody can see them. But this practice is about becoming fully aware of what's in our mind and not just covering it up. So there are seats up here if you want to come forward. You don't have to hide out in the back. It's just my selfish way of saying I don't want to yell, believe it or not. So if you're back, welcome back. We'll start with a meditation practice. For those who are new or maybe sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. Anyone's mind race all day long, just thinking and thinking and thinking. This isn't going to stop your racing mind. Often when we start meditation, if you're new to it, you think that your mind is going to go blank or you'll think nothing. Never going to happen. You'd end up sitting there telling yourself, think nothing, think nothing, think nothing, and you might as well get up and go do something. All right? Don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. If you stop breathing, then clearly you've done something wrong, and the rest of us will have a lot to deal with. So please keep breathing. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often helps if you just slide to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on the chairs or benches, also just trying to sit up straight. You didn't come all this way and pay all this money to fall asleep, so do your best to stay awake. I will say things periodically to wake you up or remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. and with the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move, holding attention on yourself. Most important with this practice is recognizing how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the Buddha statue or incense or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens. More reactions. This is what we get. The practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day. Meditation is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. Training the mind to be present is probably the most difficult thing you'll ever have to do in your entire life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and every single person you encounter, every moment of your entire life. That's why it's so simple. You just have to be nice to people every day. We can meditate forever, but we can't figure out why we're still suffering. The meditation itself does not directly correlate to a life of peace and happiness. You can meditate for 20 hours straight, and if the moment you walk outside you're greedy, angry, and mean to people, then you're not going to feel at peace. We don't meditate to be good at meditation. It doesn't matter how long you can sit perfectly still and quiet. The world out there, it's loud. See? Planned that perfectly. The world out there doesn't do what we want it to, usually, or ever. And so we practice meditation so when we go into the world, we have a mind that's a little steady, a little clear, a little more focused to deal with all the chaos out there. We spend so much time trying to fix, change, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and very little time working on ourselves. Often meditation in this practice tends to be the last thing we make time for, when in reality it should be the first. Taking care of mental, emotional health is the most important thing in your life. You know? Now you are here on a Saturday at 11 a.m., so you have put it in the beginning of your day, so I have to give you props for that. It's only the nighttime classes I can really drive that home. They waited all day long. So I don't have too much to share. I typically just like to open up to questions, but I really want to come back to briefly kind of the story I started with the kids sweeping outside, and see how that resonates with you, and how we spend most of our lives trying to just kind of sweep things away. And my master used to say, you must sweep the leaves every single day, because if you don't sweep them one day, what happens the next day? It's a larger pile of leaves to clean up. So if your mind's been a mess for 10, 20, 30, 50, 80 years, it's a lot of leaves, right? And so this is where we practice patience, right? It's never too late to start sweeping those leaves. But we can't always just cover it up. We have to look at the root of what that dirt is. What is that that's causing us suffering, and become aware of it. And then face it very honestly and authentically. And that's the difficult part, because we're so often used to just running away from problems and difficulties. We have an aversion to something and we turn and run. This is the essence of the Buddhist teachings. We suffer, we struggle, we have discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, challenges because of our aversions to the way things are. So it often helps to face things as they are and then check in with yourself and see what you're actually trying to uproot from within yourself and what you're just trying to sweep away. Because if you sweep it away, I promise, it's going to come back somewhere. Maybe immediately, maybe down the road, but it'll come back. So I'll just stop there. I'd much prefer to open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, I'd rather address what's potentially on your mind. And we'll go from there.
the difference between like sweeping a thought away and letting go of a thought during meditation?
So the question is, what's the difference between sweeping a thought away and letting go of a thought during meditation, right? I don't know. What's the difference to you?
Sweeping to me kind of signifies hiding it or not wanting to confront it and ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
And then letting go has more of a opening feeling where it just.
So what I'm hearing you say, doesn't mean I'm correct, but what I'm hearing is you are saying the exact same thing, except your approach to it is different. The idea of letting thoughts pass, you're either sweeping them away or letting them go. But either way, it's your reaction to it, right? I'll give you an example, and this may or may not help, I'm not sure. But for those also who may be new to meditation or never heard me share it this way, often we think that meditation is going to stop or block or remove thoughts. Right? There's only one time and one time only potentially that your thoughts stop, and when is that? When we're dead. And even then, if you look at it ultimately from a Buddhist lens, even then they're continuing, but we won't go there right now, it's not enough time. So let's just assume, right, that we are always going to have our thoughts. The challenge, and this isn't necessarily addressing your specific question, but it might help you explore this. When we're sitting, breath in, breath out, thought arises. Say it's hunger. I'm hungry. Recognize the thought, release it, come back to breath. Okay? Next thought arises, hunger. There's that thought again. Recognize it, release it, and this is where your sweeping or letting go thing comes into play that only you can answer. Release that thought, come back to breath. Next thought, hunger, release it, come back to breath. So I'm recognizing each thought as it arises, but I'm not clinging to it, I'm not attaching to it, I'm not giving it a story, and I'm bringing my attention back to the present moment. That's what I'm working on. For the 20 minutes that we sat here, I had just as many thoughts as every person in this room, right? But I tried for 20 minutes to come back to sensation of breath. What I don't want to do, thought arises, hunger. I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? I want a burrito. I'm going to go to Pokies. I want chips, I want sauce, I want cheese. Yes, I'd like more water. So for 5 minutes, I sat there thinking about a burrito I want to eat. So what I did with that thought is I created a story behind it. Now, you ever suffered or thought about something for a minute or 10 years? Right? So the thought you had for 10 years, when did it occur? And I'm being generous with everybody in this room, right? It occurred a long time ago, but we continue to focus on it, fixate on it, and give it life. Now, the trick here, I think, and I suggest we all be careful. I'm not a huge fan of the phrase, and not even necessarily the way you said it, but letting go. If somebody says to you, just let it go or get over it, how do you typically feel? Right? Like, we don't like that, usually. You know, okay, I'll just let it go, fine. Why didn't you tell me that before, right? No, it's that easy. So, to me, it's helpful to look at things that have happened in the past at times, to learn from them, to, come to peace with them, to forgive them, us or others. So there are moments where it's helpful to look at things from the past, but if creating the story over and over and over again for years causes so much pain and suffering, then it's also helpful to learn to come back to the present moment and keep going forward. Does that make sense? Yeah. To the question specifically, the sweeping away or letting go, that's however your mind is going to associate with that. Whether you sweep it or let it go, try not to fixate on it for your entire life. Yeah? Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yes?
I heard something in the media recently just about flow states and just flow. Just kind of curious. I don't really know what it is.
Neither do I.
But they're implying that it's somewhat related to meditation.
One of my favorite questions, and what your question was doesn't even matter. It started with, I read something in the media, it referenced they, and they applied it to meditation, right? This is a warning for everybody in here, right? And I may or may not even comment on flow state, right? Is that there are a lot of those they people out there And everyone nowadays, for the most part, not everyone, a lot of people are talking about meditation. And everybody is trying to create something around it. Usually so they can turn it into a business and make money from it. You know? You have a corporate job? Do you have a job? Yes? Okay. If I showed up at your job and said, I'm going to teach you the flow state through meditation, and it's going to bring you so much more success in your business, and you'll, times 50, be successful. And oh, by the way, pay me some money for it, right? Flow state, I don't know. Everybody says something about meditation. In a way, it's a good thing because it has people thinking about it. If somebody came, I'm not even talking to you specifically, but if somebody came here because they read something about meditation, beautiful. You know what that means? You're here, right? What I refer to is what the Buddha taught on meditation. And he taught very simply in the Anapanasati Sutta, he said, if breathing in and taking a short breath, know you're breathing in and taking a short breath. If breathing out and taking a long breath, know you're breathing out and taking a long breath, right? That's all I focus on. 100 people lead you in meditation, they'll lead you 100 different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean any of them are right or wrong. It doesn't mean they're good or bad. It doesn't mean the Buddha's teaching on it was right or wrong. He also was another human being. So ultimately, most important is as an individual cultivates a meditation practice, what does it do for you? That's what's most important, I think, because all of us are different humans, different minds. And so meditation is going to do different things for us. The challenge, whether it's a flow state or, people talk about all flow state could be exchanged for about 50 different questions that get asked around that same topic. And my question always is, are we trying to use meditation to go or get somewhere? Or are we trying to use meditation to be present with the moment as it is? And for me, my practice is not to use meditation to have some grand improving experience. It's to be okay with things that suck. Does that make sense? Because sometimes life just sucks. And to me, meditation is about learning to be okay with that. Right? And even if I get into some, flow state or whatever that might be, that's going to go away. Having things that suck, it's always going to be there. So it's a great question, and it's a common one, especially, every magazine, every newspaper, every newscaster, not all of them. Sorry for mentioning the news at all. But everyone's talking about this kind of stuff, See what it does for you. Does that help? Yeah. Actually, no, because you asked about flow state, and I didn't say anything about that. I don't know. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
Meditation, Hindu, how far back in history does it go?
How far back what?
In history, is there do we know?
You're asking me how far back history goes?
No. Like meditation, like
Right.
the Buddha, he became enlightened through his meditation.
Yes.
I presume that since he was in the Hindu culture at the time, he absorbed that from the Hindu culture. So my question is there, how many thousands of, does anybody know? When somebody first sat, obviously not, but.
Meditation goes back to this moment. I don't care if dinosaurs meditated. Tom, you should know me better than to ask me that. Actually, I do give you credit for asking that question in this crowd because you knew where I was going to go with this, Right? If dinosaurs meditated, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change your life. All that matters is how far back does your meditation practice go? And your meditation practice goes back to this moment. That's what matters, But I'm pretty sure people who lived a long time ago did meditation. But I have no interest in that, Yeah. Yes, Cynthia, yeah.
A good friend of our family has cancer and is probably going to die. And when I first found out, I wanted to grab onto my Catholic God cosmic babysitter in the sky, going to take care of everything. I wanted to, I don't so convoluted
Yeah.
as I'm watching it, as it kind of always did. When I was at the hospital and I just decided to breathe, not judge what was going on,
Mhm.
not just breathe, I felt calm.
Right.
And that I didn't have to think about what was going to happen or what didn't I do or any of it, just to breathe in that moment. And I kept thinking that this is why I came, I think, to Buddhism.
Right.
And this is where meditation really gets me. And it wasn't that I was closed eyes, you know, sitting position. I was just in the hospital.
Yeah.
In a situation where I was just breathing.
Yes.
And it was such I was like, yes, this is where it gets me.
Yeah, that's the practice, you know, and there's a phrase called bearing witness to what is happening, to being with what is real. You know, and you mentioned the word, you know, kind of praying for a miracle or, you know, the magical. To me, what I learned from Buddhist practice is the miracle and the magic is we are alive, right? Life is magical just as it is. And, you know, we experience pain, you know, severe pain, death, loss, you know, losing loved ones is not pleasant. It hurts. But it is, as the Buddha taught, we are born, we age, right? We get sick, and we pass on. And that happens to all of us. And, you know me well enough that I'm not going to touch on other religious views, but that from this perspective, it is exactly that. It is just being with what is happening, right? And a lot of that is us coming to peace and being okay with what is happening. And when you bring that to every situation, especially if you're on a family that doesn't have those same views, it's not always going to be received so well by others, but at that moment, it's for you. That you are working on moving beyond ideas that might not make sense to you. And even if they do make sense to you or anybody in this room, it's beautiful, but either way, you're just being present with it. And, you know, this present life brings lots of joy and lots of sorrow, lots of happiness, lots of sadness, lots of pain, and lots of beauty. That's what we get. And so when we look at things like death and loss, is that to me it's a reflection to look back on us. It says, okay, we're all going to get there, right? There's no escaping that part. Hate to break it to you. If you think it's not going to happen to you, you might want to snap out of that. It's going to happen to all of us. The question is when. And then I suggest abandoning the question and don't be afraid of the death part. Just don't be afraid to live. And that's where I think most people around this path and this practice begin to wake up to realizing that we're almost afraid to live. So much fear, rules, restrictions, you know, to be our true selves. And don't be afraid to live, because we don't know when that time comes. We don't know when it goes for us. We don't know when it goes for others. You know? So, yeah, thanks for sharing. There was another hand here somewhere. Yeah.
I'm new to meditation, obviously. This is the first time I've ever been here.
Yes.
I've heard with regards to meditating once a day, twice a day, in the morning, certain times. I've seen people do it for hours. Is there a certain, that feeling that I felt right now was really nice.
Yeah.
If you do it for an hour, 3 hours, is it commensurate with that time that you put in? How does that
Yeah, no. Don't measure it, right? It's my suggestion. It's a great question for someone who's brand new. When you sit, most important, right? So did you brush your teeth today?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday?
Yes, sir.
How long did you brush them for yesterday?
30 seconds each side.
Did you 30 each side? You got like a timer? You don't. So yesterday was 30 seconds. Was today 45 seconds? 36, right? So we don't change how long we brush your teeth, right? To me, meditation, it's a perfect metaphor. It's something, we brush your teeth every day. We don't even think about it. We just do it. You know, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 5 times a day. Meditation's the same way. Most important is that you do it. So if I told you to do it 20, 40 minutes twice a day, what's the likelihood of that happening? Maybe 0%, right? If I say do it 5 minutes every day, goes up to like 0.1%. I like those odds. So I think be real, especially if you're new, be realistic. If you set these goals that I'm going to sit for 20 minutes every day, you wake up in the morning, if you only have 3 deep breaths, take 3 deep breaths, right? Don't use meditation or Buddhist practice the same way we've used so many other things in our lives, which is we've set these bars, we've expected to be perfect and succeed, and then we fail, so we hate ourselves. Each day, just appreciate 3 deep breaths and see how long you sit for. Just because you sit for 3 hours doesn't mean, you're not like, how old are you?
27.
27. So your mind's been a bit of a mess for 27 years, right?
We got a lot of leaves there.
You got a lot of leaves, right? So be patient with it. Just appreciate each day. And, in about 5 years from now, if you get that far, you'll look back and you're like, yeah, this practice works. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
So I've been coming to this amazing space for a year this month. And then recently I realized that I'm very comfortable talking about my practice.
Yes.
It's nice. Now I'm very amused by the conversation I have though. A lot of people, neighbors, friends, family, ask me if I want to become a Buddhist.
Right.
That's the question that arises all the time. This is amusing to me, but it's now I'm curious about it. I even had people telling me, are you going to get a ceremony at this place in San Diego where you can get it? So I'm amused.
They weren't talking about here, were they?
Well, no, they're not
okay,
talking
good.
about it. I know where it is.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm amused, but I'm curious.
Yeah. What's your question? How does one become
My-
Buddhist?
Well, yeah. Does people become Buddhist?
Yeah.
Is there something as a reaching a point?
Yeah.
Having a diploma?
It's a great question. It's a funny question, but it's also very real. And so let me back up a little bit. A couple things. One, I think it's great that this practice has meant so much to you over this past year, that it's serious to you and you like to share it and discuss it. You're brave enough to talk about it with others. That usually goes terribly. But it's a practice for you and it's impacted your life over the years, that you've been around it, and it's wonderful. Let me start by saying, to put it into context a little bit, somebody asked the Dalai Lama years ago, they said, does this country need more Buddhists? And he said, the world has enough Buddhists. This country just needs more people who are peaceful and happy. So I always look at that approach, right? Often people come in, with this idea of like, well, how do I convert to being a Buddhist? It doesn't work that way, right? Another example, and then I'll probably eventually answer your question, is my master used to say, you could shave your head and put on a robe, and that won't make you a monk, right? It's what's in your mind, it's what's in your heart. That's where one becomes Buddhist. There are lots of formal rituals and ceremonies, and they're really beautiful, and they've been around for 2,500 years in all different Buddhist traditions, and they're phenomenal. But the important part is to understand that if you go to one of those, and they put you through a ritual, and they won't shave your head, but, and you get a Dharma name, and they give you some mala bead thing, and they tell you this is your precept master. All of those things, which exist, right? I can tell you where to go, one place to go to. I've gone through all of that. In my heart, that doesn't make you a Buddhist. Does that make sense? And I say that answer more for everybody else than actually you who's asking the question. I also think it's important to understand that when one reaches a place in their life that it is important to them, as it is, which led you to ask this question, then you should pursue it. I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. Regardless of what, I can talk about it, on the side, regardless of where you go, or, there's some places I might suggest you not go. But for the most part, it's a beautiful ritual and ceremony, and you can take precepts, you can take refuge formally, you can be given a Dharma name, and those are all really beautiful things. Does that help? Yeah, for sure. Other questions? Yeah.
A couple Tuesdays ago, you mentioned that like a lot of people in your life are suffering because of the actions of others, and we talk a lot about like having compassion for others, and like we're only in control of ourselves. And I was wondering if you can talk about when like we will all unfortunately be on the flip side of that, and we will be causing others suffering. And I think maybe like it's easier for me to talk about like having compassion for others versus like having compassion for yourself, and whether you're intentionally causing pain or like whatever, it just happens to be what's best for you causes others pain. So I don't really have a question, but I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yes. What I heard from your question is that you're pretty certain, is my translation of it, right? That you're not causing anyone any suffering.
No.
I first want to start there, right? That we are already, every one of us, at some point throughout our day, will cause somebody a bit of suffering. Might be minor, right? It might be small. It might be a look we throw at somebody. It might be, a comment. It might be a not letting somebody in when we're driving on the freeway. So we are all causing suffering to somebody else always. Severe and minor, right? That's the first thing to understand. And then to recognize that when we do that, and you really said it, is that we work on having compassion for others when they're doing things that cause us suffering. But when we do lots of harmful, painful things, that compassion has to come towards ourselves. Right? You have no idea how many people I have hurt. Right? And I had two choices. Either let that destroy me or learn to be real with it. Right? And say, this is what I was taught, was that when we do things that harm others, right? We recognize what we did was not in line with what this practice is teaching, right? We apologize for it if it's appropriate. Right? I mean, if I broke somebody's heart 20 years ago because I did something stupid, she's probably over it by now, and she probably doesn't want to hear from me. You know what I mean? So it might not be appropriate to respond to that person directly, but then apologize to somebody else about it, to kind of own what we did, that we caused harm. And then the third thing is to vow not to do it again. But that can only come when we recognize, yes, we harmed someone. Whether it was intentional or unintentional. You know, we will all get sick at some point in time, and somebody will be hurt because we are sick, right? And those are things that are in some regards out of our control. And then there are things that we will just do blatantly that are harmful to others, and those were completely in our control, but we still did them. And that's where the three things I'm talking about, I think, really apply. But at some point in time, and it's not easy, we have to, I suggest giving ourselves a little bit of a break. We're just human. This is a crazy world we're in. This world is not out there telling you to be nice to people. It's not telling you to look out for others. Right? It's telling you to be greedy and selfish and take care of number one. And that's what leads us to do all the things that we do that harm others. So, anyone in here ever harmed anyone? Anyone in here ever done anything kind? There we go. Right? So, hopefully that's, yeah, yeah. You'll get through it. As will they. Yeah. Yes?
Why is the teaching to meditate and sit and not lay down?
It's not. See, back to the earlier question, right? I don't know if you heard it. The question was, why is the teaching to sit and to not lay down? And I said it's not. There's actually a Buddhist teaching that says sitting, standing, walking, lying down. It is all the same thing. The idea is not, again, welcome to kind of Buddhism in, the year 2019. Wait, yeah, 2019, right? That just sounded funny when it came out. it's hysterical to me, like, okay, so here we are in this 90-year-old church, and it has pews, and it has chairs, and it has cushions. And I'll walk people in here, maybe here for the first time, and they came in, and, they're downstairs, and we come upstairs, and I show them the space, and they'll walk in, and they just passed like 60 seats to come up to 15 that have cushions on the ground. And you know what they say to me? Oh, I can't sit on one of those cushions. There's 60 chairs back there. But for some reason in our Western culture, we think, and I don't want to get into why, I don't have enough time for that, we think that meditation means you must be sitting uncomfortably on a cushion on the floor, right? It's not. So then we think that it must be in a chair, because there's chairs. There's a few people who come here that are not physically comfortable sitting in a chair on a cushion, and they do lay down. I spent years doing meditation in a military population, active and veterans who've come back with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and they're in a lot of physical pain. And it's only comfortable for them to lay down, right? The joke I often make is you could be on your head in a corner and doing meditation. But what's important is where's your mind, right? Very often, and this wasn't your question, people say, well, can I do meditation right when I wake up? Yes, you can, but if you're sleeping, and you kind of roll over and hit snooze for 5 minutes and you call that meditation, that's 5 more minutes of sleep, not necessarily meditation. So the challenge is, if you're laying down for meditation, can you hold your attention and focus the same way you do as if you're sitting or walking or eating? Meditation has nothing to do with just sitting in a chair or sitting on a cushion. Meditation is a training of the mind. And everything we do is an opportunity to train the mind. Right? Sitting, standing, walking, lying down, eating, having conversations. It's a concentration and a focus on the present moment. That's the practice. So, but to your question, you're not really going to find places you go to where everybody walks and says, okay, let's lay down and do meditation.
It's more about home.
Yeah, but if you started one of those places, it would probably catch on. And often, and I'll kind of, I think, close with this thought, often people ask us about yoga, right? For the yogis in the room, right? You have Shavasana at the end. And that is a meditative practice. The entire, and I'm not a yoga person, yogi, yogini, so I don't mean this, please don't take offense to anything I say, because I can't speak to that with any knowledge, other than the entire yoga practice is a moving meditation, right? And the end, the Shavasana, is the part where you're laying in meditation. So the question I always say when I work with a lot of people who do yoga is, when you're done with yoga and you're doing Shavasana, are you still in meditation? Or are you like, oh, thank God, I'm done? And nobody knows the answer to that except you. So again, it comes back to, what is the nature of your mind doing in each thing that you're doing? Shavasana can absolutely be a meditation. And it can absolutely be laying there thinking about your shopping list. Everybody who sat here on the cushions, you are more advanced than everybody out there. Right? But no, our minds are just as much of a mess as everybody else's. And I think that's the important part. The nature of the mind. And not get caught in the kind of illusions and trappings of meditation or Buddhism, which is so common. So, I think I'll close on that. So we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Maddie during her time of suffering and her family who suffers at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace. So a few quick announcements before you head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple initially downtown 12, 13 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not nuns, we're not monks, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have a different Buddhist practice going on. I always say we're unenlightened people leading other unenlightened people in different traditions within Buddhist practice. Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do, I think, the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, which is basically veggies on sandwiches, which have gotten quite nice, by the way. But so we feed a few hundred people who sleep on the streets downtown. There's 10,000 people sleeping on the streets downtown, so anytime you think your life sucks and you kind of lack gratitude for all you have, feed some people who are putting their head on a sidewalk every night, and it tends to put things into perspective. First Saturday of the month, we do a day of silence. The college kids just finished it. It's 4 hours of silence. So if 20 minutes of silence is torture, I strongly recommend doing it for 4 hours. The only thing out of the ordinary coming up is, actually I don't think anything. We're still, for about another 6 weeks, our Monday night Zen group and Thursday night Dharma Bum Basics is on hold while we finish the Dharma Bum Life program. So those will return end of April. Bob's class is back, 2 o'clock. He does a class called Putting Buddhist Philosophy Back into Mindfulness. He's a wonderful individual, wonderful human, and really great at sharing the teachings. So I think that's all. Thank you all for being here. If I never see you again, the greatest teaching I ever got was think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's the essence of this practice. Or as my mother always said, in honor of International Women's Day yesterday, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Thank you all.
Thanks.